Hi guys, this is Mr. Mitchell. We're going to make a video today over other alternate sources of energy. And you can see on the screen right now that one of the alternate sources of energy is solar cell. This is solar power. Here's how a solar cell works. You have the light from the sun, and you can see it on the screen up there. The light from the sun is coming down, and what happens is it creates electrons from the upper part to the lower part. You can see the blue on the screen up there underneath the sun. It separates the electrons between the panels. And what that does is it creates energy whenever it separates those electrons. Individual cells power small things like calculators. When they're wired together to form solar panels, like on the top of the houses, that would be having more energy. And many panels, like hundreds or thousands that you can see in the bottom photograph over there, they would give electricity to cities. Let's go ahead and click on the next page. Positives you can see are that the sun is an unlimited power source. But the negatives of solar energy are they're expensive, and you don't get as much electricity out of a solar cell as you do out of fossil fuels. Go ahead and click to the next one. Another one is geothermal energy. Geothermal energy is any energy produced in the Earth's crust. Take a look at the screen up there. You can see we have cold water that is pumped down. That is cold water in blue that is pumped down into the ground near where magma is. Near where magma is, because magma warms up things like springs down there. So that makes it hot water. The hot water then produces the steam, which will then turn the turbines, which will then create the electricity. You may remember we've talked about that on the last video. Now here are the positives and negatives. The positives, well, it's not fossil fuels, so you won't have to worry about running out of this. The negatives, there's only so many areas where you're going to have magma under the ground. So you can't just have this in any old place. But geothermal energy is an alternate form of energy, not used that much. Another alternate form of energy is called windmills. Go ahead and click on that up there if you would. Windmills you've heard of. Using the force of moving air to create the electricity. The windmill blades are the turbine. They are the turbine. The turning of the turbine drives the generator, which produces the electricity. And on my video here, I am pulling out this part in blue, and people can't see it very well on here. I don't know if you can see it up there or not, but wind turns the turbine blades, that starts the spinning of the shaft, which generates the electricity. You have the generator inside the windmill there, and that generates the electricity, and it converts it to where it can help electrify a house. Now off to the right you can see a picture with all kinds of windmills. That is called a wind farm. If you have lots and lots of windmills creating lots of electricity, it's going to be called a wind farm. Now at the bottom you can see some positives and negatives to this. The positives are you don't have any pollution. Not a bit of pollution with windmills. And it's not a fossil fuel. The negatives are it requires wind blowing almost constantly. Around here there are some days that are windy and some days that are not. Some days that are windy, some days that are not. And it takes up lots of land. And you don't really want to live near these wind farms because they're noisy. You're going to have those windmills going a lot, and it really creates a lot of noise. Okay, let's go ahead and go to the next slide. Another alternative is something called biomass. Now you may remember the purpose of fossil fuels is like to burn it. You burn the fossil fuels, it makes the steam, which turns the turbines, which make the electricity. Here it's almost the same thing. You burn something called biomass. Now look on the screen and see what biomass comes from. You can see biomass is fiber. See it right at the top with the little stalk. And we have crop animals. No, it's not the animals that we take and burn, it's their poop. So biomass is kind of a combination of fiber, wood, and it's kind of like humus. You know, when we studied humus in the soil, it's kind of like a organic material, which can include poo, it can include other things. It's kind of what biomass is. One good thing about that is you're going to have an unlimited supply of wood and poo. And the negatives, you can actually release more carbon dioxide by burning biomass. And wouldn't it be a bummer to live right next to a place which is burning biomass? That probably wouldn't smell terribly good either. But that is an alternate source of energy. A final one is something called hydrogen fuel cells. Oh, something I forgot to say about biomass. You're on the right page up there, but I'm not here. You probably have heard of ethanol. Ethanol is something that is commonly used to add to the gasoline to power our cars. In fact, when you fill up your gas tank, it might say this is 10% ethanol. Ethanol comes from biomass. The reason they only have 10% ethanol is because if you get higher than that, small engines like boat engines cannot handle more than 10% ethanol. Okay, let's flip to the next one. Go to hydrogen fuel cells. Hydrogen fuel cells. Now this is something some people use. It is where you split the hydrogen, proton, and electron. You may remember earlier we had where if you split the uranium, then it has a huge amount of energy, kind of a radioactive amount of energy. Here you don't have as much energy. It's not radioactive, but if you split the hydrogen, proton, and electron, you're going to get some energy. And as a result, it kind of works like it did otherwise. Here you have at the bottom you have where the sunlight is. See where the sunlight is down there? It is going to evaporate the water, and the hydrogen, some of the hydrogen is going to be harnessed and stored. Now you may wonder how you can pump hydrogen into your car. There is such a thing as liquid hydrogen. So as a result, that is what would be pumped into the car. And you can see this lady here who is at a station where you can pump hydrogen into this specially designed car that burns on hydrogen. Now, there are some downfalls to this. Click the next one, if you would. Well, the good part is the product, the positive, it produces only water and heat. So it's almost no pollution and there's plenty of hydrogen. The negatives, it's very expensive. And only a few places can fill up your car with hydrogen. Okay, here.